In August 2012, three friends, Sarah, Laura, and Chrissy, embarked on a canoe trip, eager to experience the serene beauty and challenge of navigating the remote waterways of Ontario, Canada. Ontario, Canada is home to a vast expanse of forests, rivers, and thousands of lakes. These natural wonders draw outdoor enthusiasts from around the world, offering a perfect backdrop for canoeing, a beloved Canadian pastime. Canoeing through Ontario's remote lakes allows adventurers to connect with nature, find peace in the solitude, and explore areas inaccessible by any other means. Sarah, Laura, and Chrissy were visiting Ontario for the first time, and they were eager to experience this adventure together. They were childhood friends who loved all kinds of sports and had traveled the world together, seeing and experiencing the craziest things possible. But nothing could have prepared them for what they were about to experience in Ontario. Out of all of them, Sarah was the only one with years of canoeing experience. Laura had taken up the sport in the previous year, while Chrissy, the group's heart, was relatively new to canoeing, but had quickly fallen in love with it thanks to her friend's infectious enthusiasm. The three friends left on their trip, armed with excitement and ready for another adventure. They paddled through the calm waters, surrounded by vast forests of towering pines. They enjoyed the physical challenge and the breathtaking scenery, but it was each other's presence that they appreciated the most. By evening, they reached a secluded island, an ideal spot to set up camp for the night. The island wasn't huge, but it was on the bigger side. Exhausted and famished from the day's journey, they decided to take a break from setting up their tents and cook dinner first. They sat on the ground, savoring the warmth of the food and the beauty of the setting sun reflecting off the lake. It was a movie-like scene, so calm and beautiful, and the food was delicious. But the tranquility of the moment was shattered when they noticed a movement at the edge of their camp. It was a grizzly bear. They couldn't believe their eyes. They couldn't believe their luck, or lack of it. They were literally stranded on an island with a grizzly. Drawn by the smell of their dinner, the animal slowly made its way toward them. The friends froze. They stood as still as possible, barely daring to breathe, hoping the bear would lose interest and leave. Their hearts pounded in their chests, and they exchanged terrified glances, understanding the gravity of the situation. The bear, however, was undeterred, its powerful nose leading it closer and closer to the source of the enticing scent, the food in front of the three women. Suddenly, the bear lunged, and chaos erupted. Laura and Chrissy scrambled to their feet and ran into the forest. But Sarah, caught off guard, was not as quick. In mere seconds, the animal was upon her. Sarah was pinned to the ground, screaming in pain as the bear's claws tore into her arms, which she used to cover her face from the attack. The scene was a nightmare, a flurry of movement, roars, and screams. Laura and Chrissy stopped a short distance away, realizing they couldn't abandon Sarah. After the initial shock wore off, they knew they had to act. Sure, they were almost petrified, but they were also determined to save their friend. They raced back to the camp, their minds struggling to remember the safety protocols they had discussed before the trip. And then they remembered they weren't entirely helpless. They grabbed the bear spray and flares from their packs, their hands shaking with adrenaline and terror. Laura managed to get the bear spray's safety cap off and aimed at the bear, while Chrissy lit a flare, the bright light and the smoke adding to the attack. Laura let out a scream as she sprayed the bear in the face. The bear roared in anger and pain, backing away from Sarah, who lay motionless on the ground, bleeding profusely. Chrissy waved the flare, shouting to appear larger and more threatening. The combined effects of the bear spray and flare eventually drove the bear away. It retreated into the woods, but the friends knew they were not safe yet. The possibility of the bear returning loomed over them, especially on this secluded island where help was not immediately available. Terrified and with Sarah in critical condition, Laura and Chrissy moved quickly. They activated their emergency beacon, hoping for a swift rescue, but they suspected it would be hours before help could arrive, and they didn't know what to do to help Sarah. They had only limited first aid supplies, which they used to bandage her wounds. Then they tried to make her as comfortable as possible. Her injuries were severe, and they could see she was in shock, her skin pale and clammy. As night fell, the island's isolation became even more oppressive. Laura and Chrissy huddled close to Sarah, taking turns to keep watch and stoke the fire, hoping its light and smoke would keep the bear at bay. Every rustle in the woods sent waves of fear through them. They spoke loudly to discourage the bear from returning. They tried to reassure each other and keep their spirits up, but the gravity of their situation was undeniable. Sarah drifted in and out of consciousness despite Laura and Chrissy's best efforts to keep her awake. They hoped it was because of shock and not because of blood loss. Still, they prayed silently for a miracle, for the sound of helicopter blades or the sight of rescue lights piercing the darkness. Just before dawn, their prayers were answered. The distant thrum of a helicopter reached their ears, and soon a searchlight cut through the pre-dawn gloom. Relief washed over them as the rescue team arrived, securing the area and tending to Sarah's injuries with professional efficiency. Sarah was airlifted to the nearest hospital, and her friends followed shortly afterward. The ordeal had left them all deeply shaken. They had ventured into nature seeking adventure and peace, but had instead encountered one of its most fearsome inhabitants. They were lucky to be alive. As Sarah began her recovery, the bond between her friends grew stronger. But they agreed it was time to take it easy and maybe give up on exploring remote places. A vacation to Greece or Sicily would do just fine to satisfy their need for adventure. October 12, 2012, Ben, a seasoned solo hiker, embarked on a trek through the vast wilderness of Denali National Park in Alaska. Ben, a 35-year-old from Fairbanks, had been hiking and exploring the outdoors since he was a teenager. His love for nature and adventure drove him to seek out the most challenging and remote trails. Known for his expertise and confidence, Ben often ventured into uncharted territories to experience the raw beauty of the wilderness. Denali National Park, famous for its towering peaks and diverse wildlife, was a place Ben had always wanted to explore more deeply. The park, located in the heart of Alaska, offered endless opportunities for adventure. Ben prepared meticulously for his trek, packing all the necessary gear, including a tent, food supplies, bear spray, and survival tools. He was excited to immerse himself in the untouched beauty of the park. As Ben set out from the main trail, he felt a sense of exhilaration. The air was crisp, and the autumn colors painted the landscape with shades of gold and red. He moved confidently through the dense forest, following game trails and navigating by map and compass. The quiet solitude of the wilderness was exactly what he had been seeking. After a long day of hiking, Ben found a suitable spot to set up camp. He chose a clearing near a stream where he could easily access water for cooking and drinking. As evening approached, he pitched his tent and prepared his meal. The serene setting and the sounds of nature around him brought a deep sense of peace. Unbeknownst to Ben, a grizzly bear was nearby searching for food. The bear, driven by hunger, caught the scent of Ben's cooking and began to approach the campsite. Ben, unaware of the danger, continued his evening routine, enjoying the tranquility of the wilderness. As the sun set, Ben was startled by the sudden presence of the grizzly bear. The bear, sensing an easy meal, charged at him with alarming speed. Ben grabbed his bear spray and tried to defend himself, but the bear was relentless. The powerful animal mauled him severely, leaving him with deep wounds and intense pain. Desperate to survive, Ben managed to climb a nearby tree, seeking refuge from the attacking bear. After a while, the bear lost interest and wandered off, but Ben remained in the tree, too scared and injured to come down. He spent a long night in agony, clinging to the branches and hoping for rescue. Ben's harrowing experience highlighted the risks of solo adventures in the wild. The isolation that he had once sought for peace had now become a test of his will to survive. The vast wilderness of Denali, with its beauty and danger, served as a stark reminder of the unpredictability of nature. Ben remained perched in the tree throughout the cold night, his body aching from the severe injuries inflicted by the grizzly bear. The darkness seemed endless, and every sound in the wilderness kept him on edge. He clung to the branches, shivering and in pain, praying for daylight to bring some relief. The experience was a harsh reminder of the dangers that lurked in the wild, even for the most experienced hikers. As dawn broke over Denali National Park, the first light brought a glimmer of hope to Ben. He knew he needed help urgently, but he was still too weak and injured to move. The pain from his wounds was unbearable, and he feared infection if not treated soon. His thoughts drifted to the safety measures he had always taken and how this encounter had tested every ounce of his endurance. Luckily, park rangers were patrolling the area that morning, conducting routine checks on trails and campsites. Denali National Park, with its vast expanse and numerous visitors, required constant vigilance from the rangers to ensure everyone's safety. As they moved through the forest, one of the rangers noticed signs of disturbance near Ben's campsite. Curious and concerned, they approached the area cautiously. The rangers soon spotted Ben's abandoned campsite and the clear signs of a bear encounter. Their trained eyes quickly assessed the situation, noticing the scattered gear and bear tracks leading away from the site. They began calling out, hoping to find Ben nearby. Hearing their voices, Ben mustered the strength to call back, his voice weak but audible. The rangers located Ben in the tree and were shocked to see his condition. They acted swiftly, providing first aid to stabilize him before helping him down from the tree. They carefully examined his wounds, applying dressings and ensuring he was as comfortable as possible given the circumstances. They radioed for medical evacuation, knowing that Ben needed urgent care at a hospital. A helicopter was dispatched from the park's headquarters, and within a short time, it arrived to airlift Ben to Fairbanks Memorial Hospital. The rangers stayed with him, offering reassurance and support. The journey to the hospital was tense, but Ben remained conscious, driven by the hope of recovery and the comfort of knowing he was in capable hands. At the hospital, doctors and nurses worked quickly to treat Ben's injuries. He required surgery to repair the deep wounds and prevent infection. The medical team was impressed by his resilience and determination to survive such a harrowing ordeal. Over the next few days, Ben began the slow process of recovery. Supported by the dedicated hospital staff and the concern of friends and family who had learned of his ordeal. The story of Ben's encounter with the grizzly bear spread quickly, serving as a powerful reminder of the unpredictability and danger of solo wilderness adventures. His experience underscored the importance of preparation, awareness, and respect for nature's power. Park authorities used Ben's story to educate others about safety in bear country, emphasizing the need to follow guidelines and take precautions seriously. As Ben recovered, he reflected on the experience that had tested his limits. The wilderness he loved had shown him both its beauty and its peril. He knew he would continue to explore and hike, but with an even greater respect for the natural world and the risks it presented. His encounter with the grizzly bear became a part of his life story, a testament to his courage and the enduring spirit of adventure. In the end, Ben's survival was not just a personal victory, but also a lesson for others. It highlighted the thin line between thrill and danger in the wild. His tale of endurance and rescue became an inspiration, reminding everyone of the need for caution and the incredible strength required to face the unexpected challenges of nature. The vast Siberian wilderness, with its endless expanse of ice, snow, and dense forests, remained untouched by time, a realm where nature's power was absolute. Here in this unforgiving landscape, two German scientists, Dr. Klaus Ritter and Dr. Anja Weber, embarked on a critical mission to study the effects of climate change on local wildlife. Their journey had been arduous, involving planes, helicopters, and snowmobiles to reach a remote river valley deep within the taiga forest, where they would set up camp and begin their research. On their first morning, Klaus and Anja, bundled in thermal layers against the biting cold, headed to the partially frozen river to collect water samples. The work was slow and methodical, with each sample taken with care and precision. By midday, they had enough data to return to camp and begin their analysis. Klaus set up the portable lab equipment while Anja filtered the water samples, both working in focused silence, the cold air heavy around them. As the afternoon waned, the sun cast a golden light over the landscape before dipping low, plunging the temperature further. Klaus and Anja took turns stoking their small wood stove, seeking warmth as they continued their work. The surrounding wilderness grew more foreboding with the fading light, the river's dark waters hidden beneath a thin layer of ice, and the towering trees standing as silent, snow-covered sentinels. With evening approaching, they paused to prepare dinner, boiling water over a gas stove to rehydrate freeze-dried meals. The meal, though simple, provided much-needed warmth and sustenance in the harsh environment. Afterward, they reviewed their findings, discussed the implications, and planned the next day's activities. Klaus and Anja knew the risks of their work. In this remote part of Siberia, they were utterly isolated. Any mishap could be catastrophic. Yet with their experience and precautions, they remained confident in their ability to navigate the challenges of this unforgiving wilderness. As night fell, they secured their camp, making sure that their food and supplies were stored properly to avoid attracting any unwanted visitors. Klaus was the first to turn in for the night, retreating to his sleeping bag inside the tent. Anya stayed up a little longer, finishing her notes and checking the equipment one last time before she too climbed into her sleeping bag. The warmth of the tent and the comfort of the sleeping bags were a welcome reprieve from the cold outside, and soon both scientists were fast asleep, their exhaustion from the day's work lulling them into a deep slumber. But the wilderness was not entirely still. In the darkness, something stirred in the forest, moving silently among the trees. It was a large, powerful creature, its senses keen, its instincts sharp. The grizzly bear, drawn by the scent of food and the unfamiliar presence of humans in its territory, had been circling the camp for hours, its curiosity piqued and its hunger growing. The bear was a formidable predator, standing nearly 9 feet tall on its hind legs and weighing close to 1,000 pounds. The bear had been in a state of semi-hibernation, its body conserving energy during the long, harsh winter. But the smell of food had awakened it thoroughly, and now it was on the hunt. The bear approached the camp cautiously, its massive paws making almost no sound as they pressed into the snow. It paused at the edge of the clearing, its eyes locked on the tents. Inside, Klaus and Anya slept, unaware of the danger that lurked just outside. The bear moved closer, its nose twitching as it picked up the scent of the food stored in the kitchen area. It sniffed around the tents, its massive head brushing against the fabric. But the scientists remained oblivious, lost in their dreams. Then, with a sudden burst of speed, the bear tore into the makeshift kitchen, scattering supplies and ripping open containers in search of food. The noise jolted Klaus and Anya awake, their hearts pounding as they realized what was happening. They scrambled out of their sleeping bags, disoriented and terrified, but it was too late. The bear had already caught their scent, and now it turned its attention to them. Klaus was the first to react, grabbing a flare gun from his pack in a desperate attempt to scare the bear away. He fired the flare into the air, the bright light illuminating the clearing for a brief moment, but it only seemed to anger the bear. With a ferocious roar, it charged at Klaus, its mighty jaws snapping shut around his arm and pulling him to the ground. The flare gun fell from his hand as he struggled to free himself, but the bear was too strong, its teeth sinking deep into his flesh. Anya stood paralyzed as the bear mauled Klaus, its powerful paws pinning him to the ground. Her mind raced in terror, unable to process what was happening. She frantically searched her pack for anything to help, but the bear turned its attention to her. In a blind panic, Anya tried to run, but the snow hindered her, and the bear was upon her in an instant. Its claws raked her back, and she fell, screaming in pain. The bear's jaws clamped onto her neck, silencing her forever. The camp, once orderly, was now a scene of devastation, with torn tents, scattered supplies, and blood-stained snow. As dawn broke, the wilderness remained unchanged, indifferent to the lives lost. Klaus and Anya lay frozen, their journey into the wilderness ending in brutal tragedy. When Klaus and Anya's communication with their team in Germany ceased, concern grew. They had been diligent in sending updates, and their silence was alarming. A search party was organized, consisting of local guides, wildlife experts, and research team members. Days later, they arrived at the camp to a scene of horror: shredded tents, scattered supplies, and blood-stained snow. The bodies of Klaus and Anya were quickly found, buried in snow, their injuries revealing the ferocity of the bear's attack. Klaus and Anya were respected researchers dedicated to understanding climate change's impact on fragile ecosystems. Their deaths shocked the scientific community. Their loss was deeply felt not only by loved ones, but also by the field of environmental science, where their contributions had been invaluable. The tragedy sparked a debate about the safety of researchers in remote and dangerous environments. Calls for stricter safety protocols, better training, and advanced technology to monitor potential threats became widespread. Despite the loss, the research team resolved to continue the work Klaus and Anya had started, honoring their legacy by completing the study. It was September 2012, and Josh decided to take his loyal dog Max on a hiking trip in the rugged mountains of Montana. Josh, a 32-year-old outdoor enthusiast from Billings, had always loved exploring nature. He had been hiking and camping since he was a teenager, finding peace and adventure in the wild. His dog Max, a brave and energetic German shepherd, had been his companion for the past 5 years. They shared a strong bond and loved spending time together in the great outdoors. Josh had planned this trip for months. He chose a remote area in the Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness, known for its stunning views and diverse wildlife. He packed all the necessary gear, including a tent, food, water, and safety equipment. He made sure to bring bear spray, knowing the area was home to grizzly bears. Josh was excited to disconnect from the hustle of daily life and enjoy some quality time with Max in nature. The morning of their trip, the weather was perfect. The sky was clear and the air was crisp. Josh and Max set out early, eager to start their adventure. They hiked through dense forests, crossed clear streams, and climbed rocky trails. Max, with his boundless energy, led the way, sniffing around and enjoying the freedom of the wild. As they trekked deeper into the wilderness, Josh admired the beauty around him. The tall pine trees, the colorful wildflowers, and the distant mountains created a breathtaking scene. He felt a deep sense of peace, grateful for the opportunity to experience such natural beauty. Max stayed close, always alert, and ready to protect his owner. After several hours of hiking, they reached a remote part of the wilderness. Josh decided to take a break and set up camp for the night. He found a flat spot near a small stream and pitched his tent. He and Max enjoyed a simple meal, then relaxed by the stream, listening to the sounds of the forest. It was a perfect evening, and Josh felt happy and content. As night fell, they settled into their tent. Josh made sure to secure all their food and gear, aware of the potential danger from wildlife. He felt confident that they were prepared for anything. The stars shone brightly above, and the night was calm. Josh drifted off to sleep, feeling safe with Max by his side. The next morning, they continued their hike, venturing further into the wilderness. The trail became more challenging, but Josh and Max were determined. They moved carefully, enjoying the quiet and solitude of the remote area. Unbeknownst to them, a grizzly bear was nearby, foraging for food. As they rounded a bend in the trail, they suddenly found themselves face to face with the massive bear. Josh froze, paralyzed with fear. The bear, sensing a threat, began to charge. Josh's heart pounded as he realized the danger they were in. The grizzly bear charged towards Josh, its powerful body moving swiftly through the forest. Josh stood frozen, unable to react. His heart raced as he faced the terrifying creature. Just when the bear was about to strike, Max leapt into action. The brave German shepherd barked loudly and rushed at the bear, biting its leg. The bear, startled and distracted by Max's sudden aggression, turned its attention to the dog. Max continued to bark and snap at the bear, buying Josh precious seconds. Realizing he had a chance, Josh quickly reached for his bear spray. His hands shook as he fumbled with the canister, but he managed to aim and deploy a powerful stream of spray towards the bear. The bear, now hit with the bear spray, growled and backed away, shaking its head in discomfort. Josh called for help using his emergency whistle, hoping someone nearby would hear. Max kept up his fierce defense, keeping the bear's focus away from Josh. Josh's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the scene unfold. The bear, confused and irritated by the spray and Max's persistent barking, finally turned and retreated into the forest. Josh rushed to Max's side, his hands trembling with relief and gratitude. Max had minor injuries but seemed otherwise okay. Josh hugged his loyal dog, thankful for his bravery. After ensuring Max was all right, Josh quickly packed up their gear. He knew they needed to leave the area immediately. With Max by his side, they began the trek back to their car. Josh kept his bear spray ready, constantly scanning their surroundings for any signs of danger. The journey back was tense. Every rustle in the bushes made Josh's heart race, but Max stayed alert and close to him. The rugged trail seemed longer on the way back, but Josh pushed on, determined to get them to safety. After several exhausting hours, they finally reached the trailhead where their car was parked. Josh helped Max into the car and checked his injuries again. Despite some cuts and bruises, Max appeared to be in good spirits. Josh started the car and drove towards the nearest ranger station to report the incident and seek help for Max. At the ranger station, the staff treated Max's injuries and praised him for his bravery. They commended Josh for his quick thinking and effective use of the bear spray. News of the encounter spread quickly, and Max was hailed as a hero. Josh felt a mix of pride and relief, knowing how close they had come to disaster. The story of Max's bravery and Josh's survival became a local sensation. People were amazed by the loyalty and courage of the German Shepherd. The incident also sparked discussions about bear safety and the importance of being prepared while hiking in bear country. In the weeks that followed, Josh took extra precautions during their outdoor adventures. He never forgot the lesson he learned that day in the mountains of Montana. Max, his loyal companion, continued to join him on hikes, always ready to protect and explore the wild together. Their bond grew even stronger, forged by the extraordinary ordeal they had survived. The Canadian Rockies, with their towering peaks and vast forests, offer a breathtaking retreat into nature's raw beauty. It was here that the Roberts family, Mark, Emily, and their children, Sarah and James, decided to spend a day in solitude, far from marked trails and campgrounds. Mark, an experienced outdoorsman, chose a secluded clearing surrounded by towering pines where the family could enjoy a peaceful picnic with a view of the majestic mountains. They arrived just before noon, the sun casting dappled light through the canopy as they set up their picnic. Emily laid out a blanket while the children, filled with excitement, explored the nearby woods. As Doug prepared the grill, the family relaxed, enjoying the serene environment. Their laughter filled the air, a sharp contrast to the stillness of the wilderness. Unbeknownst to them, a massive grizzly bear, drawn by the scent of their food, was silently approaching. The bear, in its prime and preparing for hibernation, had been foraging nearby when the smell of grilled meat caught its attention. Driven by instinct, it moved methodically through the underbrush, its enormous form almost silent. Concealed by the trees at the edge of the clearing, the bear watched the family, drawn closer by the overwhelming scent of food. In this remote expanse, the bear's powerful presence went unnoticed, a silent reminder of the wild, untamed forces that still rule these mountains. For a moment it hesitated. The bear's instincts were conflicted. Part of it was wary of the humans, but the hunger gnawing at its belly was stronger. It took a step forward, then another, its massive frame emerging from the shadows into the clearing. Doug was the first to notice the bear. He had been tending to the grill when a movement at the edge of his vision caught his attention. His heart skipped a beat as he turned and saw the enormous grizzly bear lumbering toward them. The animal's size and the intensity in its eyes triggered an immediate surge of adrenaline in Mark. He knew in that instant that they were in grave danger. Without thinking, Doug shouted to Emily and the children. His voice broke the peace of the clearing, sending a jolt of fear through the family. Emily turned, her eyes widening in terror as she saw the bear. She grabbed Sarah and James, pulling them close, her mind racing as she tried to comprehend the sudden and terrifying shift in their peaceful day. The bear, now fully committed, charged at the family. It moved with a speed and ferocity that belied its size, its powerful muscles propelling it across the clearing in seconds. The bear's focus was on the picnic table, where the food lay spread out, an easy meal if not for the humans that stood in its way. Doug acted on instinct. He reached for the hunting knife he always carried, a large, sharp blade that had served him well on many camping trips. As the bear closed in, Doug placed himself between the animal and his family, his mind focused solely on protecting them. The bear reached the picnic table, its momentum sending the heavy wooden structure flying as it overturned the table in its rush to get to the food. The noise was deafening. The sound of splintering wood, the crash of dishes and food scattering across the ground, and the bear's growls filled the air. Emily, clutching the children, backed away as far as she could, her heart pounding in her chest. The bear was now only a few feet away from Mark, who held his ground, knife in hand, determined to do whatever it took to defend his family. The bear lunged at Mark, its mighty jaws snapping shut just inches from his face. Doug swung the knife in a wide arc, the blade slicing through the air and into the bear's thick fur. The bear roared in pain and fury, its massive paw swiping at Doug with a force that knocked him to the ground. The impact was brutal. Doug felt the wind knocked out of him as he hit the ground, his vision blurring for a moment. But he couldn't afford to stay down. Ignoring the pain, Doug scrambled to his feet, his hand tightening around the knife. The bear was on him again, its jaws snapping at his arm. Doug thrust the knife forward, driving the blade deep into the bear's shoulder. The bear roared again, this time in a rage, as it reared up on its hind legs, towering over Mark. It was a fight for survival now. Doug knew he had to keep the bear's attention on him, away from Emily and the children. He stabbed at the bear again, aiming for its neck, but the bear's thick fur and muscles deflected the blow. The bear's paw came down on Mark's chest, the claws raking through his shirt and into his flesh. The pain was excruciating, but Doug didn't falter. He drove the knife into the bear's side, twisting the blade with all his strength. The bear, now bleeding from multiple wounds, let out a final enraged bellow. It swiped at Doug one last time, knocking him to the ground before turning and retreating into the forest. The animal's instinct for self-preservation had finally overridden its hunger, the pain and blood loss driving it back into the safety of the trees. Doug lay on the ground, his breath ragged and shallow, his body a mass of searing pain. The bear's claws shredded his chest and arms, but he was alive, and his family was safe. Emily knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face as she pressed her hands to his wounds, trying to stop the bleeding. Sarah and James stood frozen, their eyes wide with fear. With Emily's help, Doug struggled to his feet. Each step sent waves of pain through his body, but he forced himself to keep moving. They reached the SUV, where Emily quickly bundled the children inside before helping Doug into the passenger seat. The car's interior felt suffocating, but it was a refuge. Emily started the engine, her hands trembling as she drove toward the nearest town. Mark's vision blurred as he fought to stay conscious, his wounds still bleeding. The journey was a blur of fear and urgency. At the hospital, Doug was rushed into surgery. Hours later, a doctor informed Emily that he had survived but faced a long recovery. The bear, wounded and wary, retreated deep into the forest, carrying the memory of the encounter with it. It was September 2024, and a documentary film crew traveled to the wilds of British Columbia to capture footage of grizzly bears in their natural habitat. The crew, led by director Sarah and cameraman Jake, had years of experience filming wildlife around the world. They were known for their stunning documentaries that brought viewers close to nature's most majestic creatures. The team included 5 members: Sarah, Jake, sound technician Mark, lighting expert Emily, and wildlife expert Tom. They had spent months planning this trip, choosing the Great Bear Rainforest for its dense population of grizzly bears and untouched beauty. The goal was to document the daily lives of these powerful animals, especially focusing on the interactions between mother bears and their cubs. The Great Bear Rainforest, located on the central coast of British Columbia, is a pristine wilderness home to a rich variety of wildlife. The crew was excited about the opportunity to film in such a remote and beautiful location. They arrived with all their gear, including high-definition cameras, sound equipment, and supplies for their stay in the wild. On the morning of September 10th, the crew set out to find a suitable spot for filming. The weather was cool and overcast, typical for the rainforest. They trekked through dense undergrowth and towering trees, following trails that led to known bear habitats. They planned to set up near a river where bears often fished for salmon, providing a perfect backdrop for their documentary. After hours of hiking, they found an ideal location. It was a clearing by the river with signs of recent bear activity. They could see fresh tracks and fish remains, evidence that bears had been there recently. Excited, they began setting up their equipment and positioning cameras to capture the best angles. Unbeknownst to the crew, they had unknowingly set up near a mother bear's den. The bear, sensing a potential threat to her cubs, watched from a distance. Her protective instincts were on high alert. The crew, busy with their preparations, did not notice the bear's presence until it was too late. As they were finalizing their setup, the mother bear charged from the undergrowth. Her powerful strides closed the distance quickly. The crew, startled and terrified, scrambled to react. Jake, thinking quickly, grabbed a tripod and tried to create a barrier. Mark and Emily joined in, using their equipment to form a makeshift shield. Despite their efforts, the bear's strength was overwhelming. She broke through the barrier, her roar filling the air. The crew realized they were in serious danger. They abandoned their gear and ran towards their vehicle, which was parked a short distance away. Hearts pounding, they reached the vehicle and climbed inside just as the bear reached the spot where they had been standing. The crew sat in the vehicle, breathless and shaken. They had narrowly escaped a potentially deadly encounter. The mother bear, seeing that the threat had passed, returned to her cubs. The crew watched in awe and fear as the bear disappeared back into the forest. The crew sat in their vehicle, their hearts still racing from the terrifying encounter. The Great Bear Rainforest, known for its stunning beauty, had just shown them its unpredictable and dangerous side. They took a moment to catch their breath and assess the situation. The gear they had abandoned was scattered around the clearing, some of it damaged by the bear's powerful charge. Sarah, the director, quickly made the decision to leave the immediate area. They drove to a safer spot further down the river, away from the bear's den. The crew needed to regroup and figure out their next steps. They parked the vehicle and began to discuss what had happened. The experience was a stark reminder of the risks involved in filming wildlife, especially in such a remote and wild place. Jake, the cameraman, checked his footage. Despite the chaos, he had managed to capture the bear's charge. The raw power and speed of the bear were evident, a testament to the challenges of filming in the wild. The crew members were shaken, but they knew they had to continue their work. They decided to review their safety protocols and plan their next move with greater caution. The crew spent the rest of the day setting up camp in a safer location, far from any known bear habitats. They used this time to repair their equipment and discuss strategies to avoid similar situations in the future. Tom, the wildlife expert, emphasized the importance of being aware of their surroundings and recognizing signs of bear activity. He suggested setting up motion sensors and using drones to scout areas before moving in with their main equipment. As night fell, the crew gathered around a small campfire. The dense forest of the Great Bear Rainforest surrounded them, the sounds of nocturnal creatures filling the air. Despite the earlier scare, they were determined to continue their documentary. They knew the importance of their work in raising awareness about the natural world and its inhabitants. The next morning, the crew returned to the site to retrieve their gear. They moved cautiously, aware that the mother bear could still be nearby. Fortunately, the area was clear, and they quickly collected their equipment. Some items were damaged, but most were salvageable. They decided to relocate to a different part of the forest, closer to the coastline, where bear activity was less intense. The new location offered its challenges, but was safer. The crew set up near a rocky outcrop overlooking the ocean, where they could film bears fishing along the shore. The landscape was breathtaking, with rugged cliffs and the endless expanse of the Pacific Ocean. This spot provided a perfect backdrop for their documentary, without the immediate danger of disturbing a bear's den. Over the next few days, the crew captured incredible footage. They filmed bears catching salmon, eagles soaring above, and the pristine beauty of the Great Bear Rainforest. The earlier encounter had made them more vigilant and respectful of the wildlife they were documenting. They used their new safety measures and remained alert at all times. The experience left a lasting impact on each crew member. They had come face to face with the raw power of nature and had learned valuable lessons about the importance of caution and respect in the wild. The footage they collected was more than just material for a documentary. It was a reminder of the fragile balance between humans and nature. As they packed up to leave, the crew reflected on their journey. In September 2010, Mike Thompson, an experienced deer hunter in his early 30s, set out on a hunting trip, eager to bring home a prize and enjoy the beauty of the wilderness. The woods of Montana were a hunter's paradise, stretching endlessly with dense forests, rolling hills, and hidden clearings. It was a land where nature reigned supreme, and the wildlife, including majestic deer and formidable grizzly bears, roamed freely. Mike Thompson had always felt at home in these woods. His passion for hunting and the outdoors was matched only by his love for his family, his wife, Jennifer, and their 3-month-old baby, little Tony. Mike set out to hunt deer early one morning in September 2010. The morning was beautiful. The sun wasn't quite up yet, but the sky was clear, and the weather was warm and pleasant. As Mike made his way deeper into the woods, he breathed in the crisp air, feeling a sense of freedom and exhilaration. He needed this hunt to unwind after a stressful couple of months, during which he had lost his job and had to find another one. Having secured a job, Mike was now celebrating and taking a quick, short hunting trip for his mental health. He needed to be at his best in order to provide for Jennifer and the baby. By midday, the sky turned gray, and a chill settled in the air. Montana's forests were known for their beauty and unpredictability. The weather could change in an instant, and that day was no exception. Mike noticed the sudden drop in temperature and the gathering clouds. Soon it started to drizzle, the rain soaking through the foliage and creating a slick, muddy ground. Visibility dropped as a thick fog rolled in, wrapping the forest in a ghostly shroud. For most people, this would be a signal to stop and go back home. But Mike was undeterred, too familiar with the weather's moodiness to pay it any mind. Mike continued his hunt, relying on his instincts and years of experience. He moved quietly, his senses alert to the slightest sound. The fog made tracking difficult, but he was determined to hunt. As he followed the faint tracks of a deer, he felt a growing sense of unease. That was a first for Mike. He had never felt like that in the forest. Not because he was unaware of the dangers, nor because he thought himself invincible, but because he loved the outdoors. The forest, once welcoming, now seemed ominous and foreboding. Suddenly, Mike stumbled upon a hidden den. Partially obscured by the fog and undergrowth, he froze, realizing too late that he had walked into the territory of a grizzly bear. The bear, startled by his intrusion, emerged from the den with a roar. It was a massive creature, its fur matted and wet from the drizzle, its eyes fierce with anger. Mike knew this was an extremely bad situation. He knew that bears are territorial creatures who don't like being taken by surprise. The man's heart raced as he fumbled for his rifle, but the bear was simply too quick. Mike didn't get the chance to fight. Instead, the bear charged, knocking the man to the ground with a force that drove the breath from his lungs. The wet earth pressed against his back as the bear's powerful jaws clamped down on his right calf, sending searing pain through his leg as it tore the flesh. The bear shook him violently, and Mike felt his body being tossed through the air as if he were weightless. He landed a short distance away from the bear, his vision blurring from the pain and shock. As he scrambled to his feet, desperate to survive, Mike spotted a tree nearby. His leg throbbed with every step, but he knew he had to climb if he wanted even the slightest chance to escape the bear. The effort was agonizing, each pull of his arm sending waves of pain through his injured calf. Blood trickled down his leg, mixing with the rain and mud. Despite the severe pain, Mike managed to climb high enough to find a sturdy, thick branch. He hauled himself onto it with a muffled cry of pain, and then he leaned against the trunk, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The bear circled the base of the tree, growling and sniffing the air. Mike's heart pounded and he held his breath, praying the bear would lose interest. After what felt like an eternity, the bear finally wandered off, disappearing into the fog. Relief flooded through Mike. He knew that if the bear had wanted to, it could have climbed the tree and reached him instantly. It was a miracle that it had decided not to. But Mike also knew he was not out of danger yet. His leg was badly injured and he was losing blood. The pain was overwhelming, and he fought to stay conscious, his thoughts drifting to Jennifer and Tony. He had to survive for them. Hours passed as Mike clung to the tree, his body growing weaker with each passing minute. He shivered uncontrollably, the cold and dampness seeping into his bones. His vision dimmed, and he struggled to keep his eyes open. Just when he felt he could hold on no longer, he heard voices calling. He looked down painfully slow and saw a group of 3 men who looked like hunters. Mike was more than grateful to see other people. Carefully, the hunters helped him down, their faces pale as they saw the extent of his injuries. They worked quickly, applying pressure to his wounds and calling for emergency assistance. Mike's mind drifted in and out of consciousness as the 3 hunters did their best to stabilize him. He felt their hands on him, their voices soothing but urgent. He thought of Jennifer and Tony, the image of their faces, giving him a reason to fight through the pain and darkness threatening to engulf him. When the rescue team arrived, they acted swiftly. He was lifted onto a stretcher and carried through the woods and into a vehicle. The thought of his family waiting for him kept him going, and it sure helped that he couldn't feel his leg anymore, despite the fact that he was aware this was a bad sign. Doctors fought for hours to save his leg, but nothing could be done. Still, as he lay in a hospital bed with Jennifer by his side and Tony sleeping peacefully in her arms, Mike knew losing his leg was a small price to pay. He had been given a second chance. He reflected on the experience. He had always respected the power of nature, but his brush with death had deepened that respect. He wasn't sure he would ever be able to hunt again, but being alive for his family was everything he could ask for. The wilderness of Montana would always be a part of him, but so would the lessons learned and the life he cherished. It was October 2015, and Anna, an experienced backpacker, set out on a solo trek through the Appalachian Trail. Anna, a 29-year-old from Asheville, North Carolina, had always loved the outdoors. She spent her weekends exploring the mountains and forests near her home. Over the years, she had developed a deep understanding of nature and honed her survival skills. Anna enjoyed the peace and challenge that came with solo hikes, and she felt at home in the wilderness. Planning this trip had been Anna's way of escaping the stress of her job as a graphic designer. She needed a break from the constant deadlines and long hours. The Appalachian Trail, with its stunning landscapes and diverse wildlife, was the perfect place for her to unwind. She carefully prepared for her journey, packing all the essentials: a sturdy tent, warm clothing, cooking gear, and plenty of food. She also carried a first aid kit and bear spray, knowing that the trail was home to various wild animals, including bears. On the morning of October 15th, Anna set off on her adventure. The weather was cool and crisp, with the leaves showing beautiful shades of red and orange. The trail was challenging but rewarding, offering breathtaking views of the mountains and valleys. Anna hiked for hours, enjoying the solitude and the sounds of nature. She felt a sense of freedom and excitement with each step she took. As evening approached, Anna found a suitable spot to set up her camp. She chose a small clearing near a stream where she could easily access water for cooking and drinking. She pitched her tent, gathered some firewood, and began preparing her dinner. The smell of cooking filled the air as Anna cooked her meal over the campfire. She felt content and happy, looking forward to a peaceful night under the stars. However, as she was finishing her meal, Anna noticed movement at the edge of the clearing. A grizzly bear, attracted by the scent of food, had entered her camp. Her heart raced as she realized the danger she was in. Remembering her training, Anna tried to scare the bear away by making loud noises and waving her flashlight. She hoped to frighten the bear back into the woods, but the bear, undeterred and driven by hunger, began to charge towards her. Fear surged through Anna as she quickly scanned her surroundings for an escape route. A nearby tree seemed to be her only hope. She dropped her flashlight and ran towards the tree, trying to climb it as fast as she could. The bear reached her just as she started to ascend, swiping at her with its powerful claws. Anna felt a sharp pain as the bear's claws tore through her clothing and into her flesh. She cried out in agony, but managed to pull herself up higher into the tree. Bloodied and terrified, she clung to the branches, praying that the bear would leave. The bear circled the tree, growling and sniffing the air, but eventually lost interest and wandered off into the darkness. Anna remained in the tree, clinging to the branches, her body trembling from pain and fear. The grizzly bear had finally wandered off, but the danger was far from over. She was alone, injured, and stuck in the wilderness. The night air was cold, and Anna's wounds throbbed with every heartbeat. She tried to stay calm, knowing that panic would only make her situation worse. The forest around her was eerily silent, the usual sounds of nocturnal creatures absent. Anna's mind raced as she tried to assess her injuries. Her clothes were torn, and she could feel the deep cuts on her arms and legs. Blood was trickling down her skin, but she had no way to bandage herself properly while perched in the tree. She had to endure the pain and wait for help to arrive. Hours passed slowly. The darkness seemed endless, and Anna fought to stay awake. She knew that falling asleep could be dangerous, as she might lose her grip and fall from the tree. Her body ached from the uncomfortable position, but she forced herself to stay alert. She thought about her family and friends back in Asheville, hoping that someone would realize she was missing and send help. As the first light of dawn began to break, Anna's hope was renewed. The faint light brought some comfort, making her feel less isolated in the vast wilderness. She listened intently for any sounds that might indicate other hikers nearby. The Appalachian Trail was popular, and she knew that other adventurers might pass through this area. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Anna heard voices in the distance. She strained to listen, her heart racing with anticipation. The voices grew louder, and soon she saw a group of hikers approaching. They were a few hundred yards away, and Anna mustered all her strength to call out for help. Her voice was weak, but it was enough to catch their attention. The hikers, noticing Anna in the tree, rushed to her aid. They quickly assessed the situation and realized the severity of her injuries. One of the hikers, who had some medical training, climbed up to her and helped her down carefully. They used their first aid kits to tend to her wounds as best they could, trying to stop the bleeding and make her comfortable. One of the hikers contacted emergency services using a satellite phone. They explained the situation and gave their exact location, somewhere near Blood Mountain, a well-known spot on the trail. The rescue team assured them that help was on the way. Anna felt a wave of relief, knowing that she would soon be in safe hands. While waiting for the rescue team, the hikers stayed with Anna, keeping her warm and conscious. They shared their food and water, and their presence brought her immense comfort. The rescue team arrived within a few hours, and they quickly transported Anna to the nearest hospital in Blairsville, Georgia. Anna's injuries were serious but not life-threatening. The doctors treated her wounds and ensured she was stable. News of her ordeal spread quickly, highlighting the risks of solo adventures in the wilderness. Anna's story served as a powerful reminder of the importance of proper safety measures and the unpredictable nature of wildlife encounters. In the weeks that followed, Anna recovered from her injuries. The experience had shaken her, but it also reinforced her love for nature and her respect for its power. She continued to share her story, hoping to educate others about the dangers and to encourage responsible outdoor practices. Anna's bravery and resilience became an inspiration to many, reminding everyone of the thin line between adventure and peril in the wild. 3 college friends, David Kaleo, Samuel Ikaika, and James Kiwi, had long dreamed of exploring Alaska's remote wilderness. After years of planning, they finally embarked on their journey, venturing deep into Alaska's vast backcountry. As experienced outdoorsmen, they were thrilled by the raw, untouched beauty surrounding them: towering mountains, dense forests, and a clear, fast-moving river near their campsite. The first day of their expedition was awe-inspiring. They hiked steadily, marveling at the landscape, and set up camp as the sun dipped below the horizon. The night was peaceful, with a small fire casting flickering shadows as they ate in contented silence. As darkness fell, the stars emerged in a brilliant display, and the friends drifted off to sleep, unaware of the danger lurking nearby. Unbeknownst to them, a grizzly bear had caught their scent. Drawn by the faint smell of food, the bear, a large male preparing for winter, had been silently following their trail. As the night wore on, it circled the campsite, evaluating the situation with instinctual caution. The fire had died down, leaving little to deter the bear's advance. The next day began like the first, with the friends eager to continue their adventure. They broke camp and set off through challenging terrain, driven by the promise of untouched beauty ahead. By midday, they reached a plateau offering a breathtaking view: miles of forested hills, snow-capped peaks, and the river winding below. They rested briefly, taking in the view and snapping photos. This was the wilderness they had dreamed of, a place few had ventured. They spent the afternoon exploring the plateau, careful to leave no trace of their presence, mindful of the delicate balance of the ecosystem. But as they enjoyed their adventure, the grizzly remained on their trail, its presence a stark reminder that in the wild, humans are not always at the top of the food chain. As evening approached, they selected a new campsite nestled between a cluster of tall pines. The trees offered some protection from the elements, and the ground was soft with pine needles, making it a comfortable spot to pitch their tents. They went through the routine of setting up camp, with David and Samuel taking care of the tents while James gathered firewood. As the sun dipped lower, they built another small fire, preparing their evening meal with the same care and efficiency they had honed over years of camping together. The night fell quickly in the wilderness, the warmth of the day giving way to the chill of the evening. The friends sat around the fire, sharing the kind of easy companionship that comes from years of friendship. The stars came out again, even brighter than the night before, and the forest around them seemed alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures. The crackling of the fire and the occasional pop of a log breaking apart punctuated the night. But the bear was still there, watching from the shadows. It had followed them again, its interest piqued by their presence. The day had been extended for the bear as well, spent moving through the dense forest and keeping a careful distance from the humans. It was now closer than it had been the previous night, the scent of food stronger, and the bear's patience wearing thin. The night provided cover for its approach, the darkness concealing its movements as it crept nearer. The friends, unaware of the danger that lurked just beyond the glow of their fire, went to bed, tired from the day's exertion. They secured their food as best they could, hanging it high in a tree away from the tents, a precaution they had taken countless times before. They crawled into their sleeping bags, the warmth and comfort of their tents a stark contrast to the cold outside. Sleep came quickly, the sounds of the forest lulling them into a sense of security. But the bear was closer now, its hunger and curiosity overcoming any fear it might have had. It approached the campsite slowly, its movements deliberate and calculated. The scent of the food was intoxicating, and the bear's massive frame moved with a quiet grace as it closed in on the hanging provisions. With a swift and decisive motion, the bear brought down the food, tearing into the bags with a ferocity born of hunger. The noise was enough to wake the men, but by then it was too late. The bear, driven by hunger and instinct, tore through the campsite with terrifying speed. In mere moments, it reached the first tent, shredding the fabric and leaving no time for the three friends to react. The attack was swift and brutal, the bear's immense power rendering any hope of survival futile. It moved efficiently from tent to tent, its jaws and claws executing deadly work within seconds. In less than 2 minutes, the campsite was a scene of unimaginable violence. The friends' lives ended in a relentless assault. As silence returned to the forest, the bear, satisfied, departed, leaving behind only destruction. Days later, a search party, alerted by the families, arrived at a horrific scene. The campsite was unrecognizable, with tents shredded and the ground stained with blood. The remains of the friends, scattered and torn, bore the marks of the bear's ferocity. The attack shocked the region, sparking fears and urgent discussions about the dangers of venturing into bear country. Speculation arose. Was the bear driven by starvation, or had it been provoked? Yet the friends had done nothing wrong, their tragic end a reminder of nature's unpredictability. For their families, the loss was devastating, a dream of Alaskan adventure cruelly cut short by one of its most fearsome predators. It was July 6, 2024, in a remote mining camp in Siberia. A group of Russian mine workers had gathered at their makeshift camp after a long day underground. These miners, from various parts of Russia, had come together to work in the rich, mineral-laden region of Siberia. They were experienced and hard-working, driven by the promise of good wages and steady employment. The mining camp was located in the Krasnoyarsk Krai region, known for its vast wilderness and harsh conditions. The workers had set up their camp near the edge of the forest, using tents and temporary shelters for their accommodations. Each day, they descended into the mine, enduring the tough labor and the risks that came with working underground. Despite the challenges, they found camaraderie and a sense of purpose in their shared efforts. The miners had a routine: work hard during the day and gather around the campfire at night. They cooked their meals over the open flame, sharing stories and enjoying a brief respite from their demanding jobs. The smell of their cooking often filled the air, a comforting reminder of their shared lives in this remote place. On this particular evening, the miners were tired, but content. They had just finished their meal and were settling in for the night. The sky above was clear, and the cool Siberian breeze rustled the leaves of the nearby trees. Unbeknownst to them, a grizzly bear, drawn by the scent of food, was lurking on the outskirts of the camp. The bear, hungry and desperate, had wandered close to the camp. Its keen sense of smell had led it to the miners' site, where the aroma of cooked food lingered. The bear had been struggling to find enough food in the harsh Siberian environment, and the scent was too tempting to resist. The miners, unaware of the danger, continued their evening routines. Some cleaned up after dinner, while others prepared to sleep. The peaceful atmosphere was abruptly shattered when the bear, driven by hunger and aggression, burst into the camp. The sudden attack caught everyone off guard. The bear's ferocity was overwhelming. It charged at the miners, who tried to defend themselves with whatever tools and makeshift weapons they could find. Shovels, pickaxes, and even branches were used in a desperate attempt to fend off the massive animal. The bear, however, was relentless. Its powerful claws and jaws inflicted serious injuries on several workers. Panic spread through the camp as the miners fought for their lives. The scene was chaotic, with shouts and the sounds of struggle filling the air. Despite their best efforts, the miners could not match the bear's strength and fury. The tragic event unfolded quickly, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Several workers were fatally injured before the bear was finally driven away. The surviving miners, shaken and grieving, tended to the injured and mourned the loss of their friends. The attack highlighted the constant threat of wildlife in isolated areas like the Siberian wilderness. The miners, who had come to Siberia seeking fortune and stability, were reminded of the unforgiving nature of their environment and the ever-present dangers that came with it. The miners, now faced with the aftermath of the brutal attack, quickly organized themselves to help the injured. They used their first aid kits to treat wounds as best as they could, but it was clear that some injuries were too severe for their limited supplies. The gravity of the situation set in, and they realized they needed to get professional medical help as soon as possible. The nearest town with a medical facility was Yeniseisk, a remote location, but it was still their best hope. They used their radios to contact the mining company's headquarters, explaining the urgent need for medical evacuation. The response was swift, and a helicopter was dispatched from Yeniseisk. The miners prepared a makeshift landing area for the helicopter, clearing away debris and setting up lights to guide the pilot. As they waited for the helicopter, the miners did their best to keep the spirits of the injured high. The cool night air seemed even colder as they tended to their fallen comrades, using blankets to keep them warm. The pain and fear in the eyes of their friends were a harsh reminder of the danger they all faced in the Siberian wilderness. Hours later, the sound of the helicopter approaching brought a sense of hope. The pilot skillfully landed in the makeshift area, and the medical team quickly assessed the situation. The injured were carefully loaded onto the helicopter, and those with the most severe injuries were prioritized. The miners watched as their friends were flown to safety, praying for their recovery. With the immediate crisis over, the remaining miners gathered to discuss what had happened. The attack was a grim reminder of the risks of working in such an isolated and wild environment. They knew they had to be more vigilant in the future, not just with their work, but also with their safety protocols regarding wildlife. They decided to set up better food storage systems and create a more secure perimeter around their camp to prevent such incidents. News of the attack spread quickly. It reached the local authorities and wildlife experts who came to the camp to investigate. They wanted to understand what had driven the bear to such desperation. The experts explained that food scarcity and the encroachment of human activity into wildlife habitats often led to such dangerous encounters. The miners cooperated with the investigation, sharing their experiences and learning more about living alongside wild animals. They realized the importance of respecting the natural habitat and the creatures that lived there. The attack had left a mark on the mining community, a stark lesson in the balance of nature and human activity. In Yeniseisk, the injured miners received the medical care they needed. Some had to undergo surgeries, while others were treated for less severe wounds. The town's hospital staff worked tirelessly to help them recover. The miners' families, upon hearing the news, rushed to the hospital to be with their loved ones. The reunion was filled with relief and tears as they realized how close they had come to losing their family members. The mining company also took steps to improve safety. They provided additional training for the workers on how to deal with wildlife encounters and reinforced the importance of following safety protocols. They also invested in better equipment and emergency supplies to ensure that the miners were better prepared for any future incidents. In July 2024, a team of 3 dedicated geologists embarked on a week-long research expedition, eager to discover mineral deposits deep in the Alaskan wilderness. The remote mountains of Alaska, which stretched as far as the eye could see, provided the perfect place for their research. This land, rugged and unforgiving, was a geologist's paradise, rich with untapped mineral deposits and geological wonders. Dr. Joe Martin, the leader of the expedition, was a seasoned geologist with decades of experience. At 58, he had spent the better part of his life studying Earth's ancient processes. His passion for geology was matched only by his love for adventure. Joe's calm demeanor and vast knowledge make him the leader of the team. His colleagues, Dr. Nick MacArthur and Dr. Robert Gibson, were younger but somewhat experienced. At 35 years old, Nick was a geochemist, while Robert was a 32-year-old field geologist. The area of their research was isolated with no signs of civilization for miles, and the presence of wildlife, including the formidable grizzly bear, was a constant reminder of the risks they faced. Still, they were enthusiastic and ready to take on the challenge. It was the 4th day of their expedition when Joe, Nick, and Robert set up camp near a river. They discussed their findings and planned the next day's activities, the gentle sound of rushing water providing a calming backdrop to their conversations. The trio were completely absorbed in their work, meticulously cataloging samples and analyzing data. Their excitement over a promising mineral vein was almost palpable, but it also made them completely unaware of the danger lurking nearby. Unbeknownst to the geologists, a grizzly bear, drawn by the scent of their supplies, decided to investigate their camp. The massive animal moved silently through the underbrush, its keen sense of smell guiding it closer to the source of the mouth-watering smells. Still oblivious to the danger, the geologists continued their conversation. But then, everything changed. A low growl reverberated through the camp. Nick was the first to look up, his eyes widening in horror as he spotted the grizzly bear emerging from the shadows. He screamed in shock. He tried to alert the others, but his words were hard to understand because of shock. Nick scrambled to his feet. Joe and Robert followed suit despite the fact that they hadn't spotted the bear yet. But when they followed Nick's line of sight, their hearts pounded as they realized the gravity of the situation. Dr. Joe Martin, the oldest and most experienced of them and the leader of the group, quickly decided it was his duty to take charge and protect the others. As he reached for a flare gun, he told the others to stay calm. He knew that bears can be unpredictable, and the best course of action was to appear large and intimidating. He fired a flare into the air, hoping the bright light and loud noise would scare the bear away. But instead of retreating, the bear was enraged. With a deafening roar, it charged at the trio, covering the distance between them in seconds. The team scattered. Nick and Robert managed to get away, but Joe was caught almost immediately. The bear's powerful jaws clamped down on his arm, and it shook him like a rag doll. Joe screamed in agony, trying to free himself, but the bear's grip was unrelenting. Nick and Robert, in a desperate bid to save their leader, grabbed more flares and waved them frantically. The bear momentarily released Joe, who then fell to the ground, blood pouring from his wounds. The bear turned its attention to the flares, giving Nick and Robert a brief window to act. They fired more flares directly at the bear, the searing light and heat finally driving it back into the forest. As the bear retreated, Nick and Robert rushed to Joe's side. The sight was horrifying. Joe's arms and shoulders were shredded, deep gashes covered his body, and his breathing was labored. Even more, the older man's head was bleeding heavily. Robert grabbed the satellite phone, frantically calling for emergency help. But they knew they were hours away from civilization, in a remote place that was hard to reach even by helicopter. They needed a miracle. Joe's eyes fluttered open, pain and exhaustion lining his face. Joe instinctively knew this was his end, that he would never see his beloved wife again. At least he was among friends. He gasped, blood bubbling at the corners of his mouth. Nick and Robert, tears streaming down their faces, realized there was nothing more they could do for Joe. They used their jackets to cover him, trying to keep him warm, and held his hands, whispering words of comfort and encouragement. They told him that he was a hero. Joe's eyes met theirs, a flicker of gratitude and pride shining through the pain. He took a large breath, then the light in his eyes faded. It was over. Dr. Joe Martin was dead. Nick and Robert sat in stunned silence, the reality of their loss sinking in. The wilderness around them felt oppressing, vast and empty, the weight of their grief almost too much to bear. They never left Joe's side, even when the rescue team arrived. Their expedition, which they had worked so hard for, had ended in tragedy. The geological community lost a brilliant member, and so did the world. Nick and Robert knew they would forever be grateful to their leader, a person who taught them almost everything they knew about field expeditions. Dr. Joe Martin was hailed as a hero, and his bravery and sacrifice were commemorated by his colleagues and the wider geological community. June 10th, 2024, Tom, a seasoned mountain climber, set out to conquer a remote peak in the Rocky Mountains. Tom, a 38-year-old adventurer from Denver, Colorado, had been climbing mountains for over 2 decades. His passion for climbing began in his youth, and he had summited many challenging peaks around the world. Known for his skill and determination, Tom loved the thrill of reaching new heights and experiencing the untouched beauty of the wilderness. Tom had meticulously planned this climb for months. He chose a lesser-known peak in the Rockies, aiming for a new challenge away from the usual climbing routes. The peak, located in the rugged terrain of Colorado, offered stunning views and a sense of solitude that Tom cherished. He packed his gear, including ropes, an ice axe, crampons, and enough supplies for several days. Tom was well prepared and confident in his abilities. The journey began with a long hike through dense forests and rocky trails. Tom enjoyed the fresh mountain air and the sounds of nature around him. He felt a sense of freedom and excitement as he made his way higher into the mountains. The weather was clear, and the conditions were perfect for climbing. After several hours of hiking, Tom reached a high altitude where he decided to set up camp for the night. He found a flat area on the mountain surrounded by tall pine trees and snow-covered rocks. Tom set up his tent and prepared a simple meal. As he ate, he marveled at the beauty of the landscape around him. The setting sun cast a golden glow over the peaks, and the sky turned shades of pink and orange. Tom felt at peace, ready to rest and prepare for the final ascent the next day. Unbeknownst to Tom, he had set up camp in a grizzly bear's territory. The bear, feeling threatened by the unfamiliar presence, watched from a distance. As night fell, Tom settled into his tent, unaware of the danger nearby. The cold mountain air was crisp, and the silence of the wilderness was profound. Tom drifted off to sleep, dreaming of reaching the summit. In the early hours of the morning, Tom was abruptly awakened by the sound of heavy footsteps and a low growl. He quickly realized the danger he was in. The grizzly bear had approached his camp, driven by a sense of territorial defense. Tom's heart raced as he grabbed his ice axe, the only weapon he had. The bear charged at Tom, and he fought back with all his might. Using his ice axe, he managed to injure the bear, causing it to retreat. The struggle was intense, and Tom suffered injuries from the bear's powerful claws. Despite the pain, he stood his ground, determined to survive. The bear, now wounded, retreated into the forest, leaving Tom breathless and shaken. Tom assessed his injuries, realizing he needed to treat them quickly. He bandaged his wounds as best as he could, using his first aid kit. The encounter had left him exhausted and in pain, but his determination to complete the climb remained strong. Tom knew that he needed to keep moving to stay warm and avoid the risk of further danger. Tom, despite his injuries, knew he had to stay focused and keep moving. The early morning light began to creep over the horizon, casting a faint glow on the rugged terrain. He packed up his gear, making sure to secure everything tightly. The pain from his wounds was sharp, but Tom's determination pushed him forward. He had come too far to turn back now. The peak he aimed to summit was in the heart of the Rocky Mountains, near Long's Peak, a well-known and challenging climb in Colorado. Tom knew the terrain well and trusted his skills. He began his ascent, carefully placing each step to avoid slipping on the icy rocks. The air was thin at this altitude, making each breath a challenge. However, the breathtaking views of the surrounding mountains kept him motivated. As Tom climbed higher, he kept a vigilant eye on his surroundings. The memory of the bear attack was fresh in his mind, serving as a constant reminder of the wilderness's unpredictable nature. The climb was steep and demanding, requiring all his strength and concentration. He used his ice axe to anchor himself on the icy slopes, methodically making his way up. Hours passed, and the summit grew closer. Tom's body ached, and his injuries throbbed with every movement. He paused briefly to catch his breath and drink some water. The cold mountain air was refreshing, helping to numb the pain slightly. He could see the summit just ahead, its snow-covered peak glistening in the sunlight. With renewed determination, Tom pushed through the final stretch. Each step felt like a victory as he neared the top. Finally, he reached the summit. The sense of accomplishment was overwhelming. He stood at the peak, taking in the panoramic views of the Rocky Mountains. The sight was nothing short of magnificent, with endless snow-capped peaks stretching out before him. Despite the exhaustion and pain, Tom felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had overcome not only the physical challenge of the climb, but also the terrifying encounter with the grizzly bear. He took a moment to reflect on the journey and the obstacles he had faced. The experience had tested his limits and shown him the true meaning of resilience. After spending some time at the summit, Tom knew it was time to descend. The descent was just as challenging, requiring careful navigation and focus. He retraced his steps, making sure to move slowly and steadily. The journey down was long, but the thought of reaching safety kept him going. As he descended, Tom's mind was filled with thoughts of the bear encounter. The experience had left him with more than just physical scars. It had instilled a profound respect for the wild. He understood the importance of being prepared and the unpredictability of nature. The mountains were beautiful but also formidable, demanding respect from those who ventured into their depths. Tom finally reached the base of the mountain, exhausted but relieved. He made his way to the nearest ranger station in Estes Park, where he received medical attention for his injuries. The rangers were amazed by his story of survival, and praised his bravery and determination. Tom's tale quickly spread, becoming a harrowing example of human resilience and the untamed power of the wilderness. In the days that followed, Tom recovered from his injuries. The experience had changed him, deepening his love for the mountains and his respect for their dangers. He continued to climb, but with a renewed sense of caution and preparedness. His encounter with the grizzly bear became a part of his story, a reminder of the thin line between adventure and peril in the wild. It was November 2015, and Kevin, a renowned wildlife photographer, embarked on a journey to the Canadian Rockies. Kevin, aged 45, had built a successful career capturing the beauty and power of wildlife. His photographs have been featured in numerous magazines and exhibitions worldwide. He had a deep passion for nature and a talent for capturing animals in their natural habitats. Growing up in Vancouver, Kevin spent his childhood exploring the forests and mountains of British Columbia. His love for wildlife started at a young age, inspired by the diverse ecosystem around him. He studied photography and biology, combining his interests to become a wildlife photographer. Over the years, Kevin traveled to many remote locations, always searching for the perfect shot. His dedication and skill earned him respect in the photography community. For his latest project, Kevin aimed to capture a grizzly bear in its natural environment. He chose the Canadian Rockies, a region known for its breathtaking landscapes and rich wildlife. He spent weeks researching the best locations and planning his trip. Kevin knew the risks involved, but was confident in his experience and preparation. On the morning of November 10th, Kevin set out to a remote area near the Bow River. The air was crisp, and the ground was covered with a light dusting of snow. He carried his high-quality camera equipment, including a sturdy tripod and several lenses. Kevin walked along the riverbank, searching for signs of bear activity. He found a spot where the river widened, creating a perfect fishing ground for bears. Kevin set up his camera, carefully positioning it to capture the river and surrounding forest. He adjusted the settings, making sure everything was perfect for the shot he envisioned. The peacefulness of the location made him feel at ease, and he patiently waited, hoping to spot a bear. Hours passed, and Kevin remained focused, determined to capture the image he had traveled so far to get. As the day turned to evening, Kevin noticed movement on the opposite side of the river. A large grizzly bear emerged from the trees, making its way to the water's edge. Kevin's heart raced with excitement as he began to take photos. The bear moved gracefully. Its powerful presence was mesmerizing. Kevin was completely absorbed in his work, unaware that he had set up too close to the bear's fishing spot. Suddenly, the bear noticed Kevin's presence and became agitated. The bear, feeling threatened, started to charge. Kevin's excitement turned to fear as he realized the danger he was in. He tried to back away slowly, hoping to avoid provoking the bear further. However, the bear's charge was swift and determined. Kevin grabbed his tripod, using it as a makeshift weapon to defend himself. He swung it at the bear, trying to create some distance. Despite his efforts, the bear's strength and aggression were overwhelming. The powerful animal knocked Kevin to the ground, and he struggled to fend it off. The grizzly bear's sheer power was too much for Kevin to handle. Despite his efforts to defend himself with the tripod, the bear knocked it out of his hands. Kevin fell to the ground, and the bear's massive paws pinned him down. He tried to shield himself, but the bear's claws and teeth were relentless. The pain was excruciating, and Kevin's vision began to blur. The bear, after inflicting serious injuries, eventually backed off and disappeared into the forest. Kevin lay there, bleeding and struggling to stay conscious. The cold ground pressed against his body as he tried to gather the strength to move. He knew he needed help, but he was alone in the remote wilderness. Hours passed, and Kevin's hope began to fade. The pain and loss of blood made it difficult for him to stay awake. He thought about his family and friends, wishing he could see them one last time. As the sun began to set, the temperature dropped, adding to his suffering. Kevin's body was weak, and he found it hard to breathe. The next morning, a group of hikers came upon the scene. They had been following the river and noticed Kevin's equipment scattered near the bank. Alarmed by the sight, they searched the area and found Kevin lying on the ground. The hikers quickly called for help using a satellite phone, providing their exact location near Bow River in Banff National Park. Emergency responders arrived as quickly as possible, but it was too late to save Kevin. They found him unresponsive, his body showing the signs of a brutal bear attack. His camera, though damaged, was still nearby, a chilling reminder of the dangers of wildlife photography. The responders carefully documented the scene and prepared to transport Kevin's body back to town. News of Kevin's tragic end spread rapidly. The photography and wildlife communities were deeply affected by the loss of a talented and passionate individual. His work had inspired many, and his dedication to capturing the beauty of nature was widely admired. Kevin's death sparked discussions about the risks involved in wildlife photography and the importance of safety precautions. In the days that followed, experts and park officials emphasized the need for better awareness of wildlife behavior. They highlighted the importance of maintaining a safe distance from animals, especially in areas known for bear activity. Kevin's story served as a powerful reminder of the unpredictable nature of wildlife and the respected commands. A memorial service was held in Vancouver where family, friends, and colleagues gathered to honor Kevin's life and work. His photographs were displayed, showcasing the incredible moments he had captured over the years. Many spoke about his passion, kindness, and the legacy he left behind. The service was a heartfelt tribute to a man who had dedicated his life to sharing the wonders of the natural world. Kevin's final project, though unfinished, was completed by his peers who were inspired by his vision. The photographs he managed to take on that fateful day were included in a special exhibit, highlighting the raw beauty and power of nature. The exhibit also served as an educational tool, teaching others about the importance of safety when interacting with wildlife. Kevin's legacy lived on through his work and the lessons learned from his tragic end. His story continued to inspire and educate, ensuring that future generations of photographers approached their craft with both passion and caution. The Canadian Rockies, with their majestic landscapes and diverse wildlife, remained a place of awe and wonder, forever tied to the memory of a dedicated and brave photographer. Andrés Calderón, a seasoned solo backpacker from Bogotá, Colombia, was drawn to the rugged beauty of Colorado's backcountry. His years of experience navigating harsh terrains and thriving in solitude had prepared him for the challenge. The jagged peaks of the Rockies and dense pine forests promised the isolation and connection to nature he craved. Carefully planning his route through some of the most secluded parts of the wilderness, Andrés was aware of the risks. He knew he was in bear country and took every precaution, from storing food high in trees to keeping bear spray at hand. Despite his extensive knowledge, Andrés had never encountered a grizzly in all his years of backpacking. The days passed peacefully as Andrés trekked more profoundly into the mountains, with the landscape shifting between dense forests and open meadows. The unpredictable weather added to the thrill, but it was the vastness and unpredictability of the wilderness that both captivated and challenged him. One night, as he settled into camp, the first sign of danger appeared, a set of fresh, grisly tracks in the mud. Unbeknownst to Andrés, a bear had been silently following his trail, drawn by the scent of his food or simple curiosity. The massive creature blended seamlessly with the shadows, patiently biding its time as it trailed the unsuspecting backpacker. Andrés remained blissfully unaware of the danger lurking nearby. He continued his trek the following day, the sun rising over the mountains and casting a warm, golden light over the landscape. The trail led him down into a deep valley, where a clear, fast-moving stream cut through the forest. The water sparkled in the sunlight, and Andrés decided it was the perfect spot to rest and refill his water supply. He knelt by the stream, savoring the coolness of the water as it flowed over his hands. The sound of the rushing water was soothing, a welcome respite after the long hike. As he sat by the stream, Andrés felt a sense of peace wash over him. The forest was alive with the sounds of nature, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves in the breeze, and the distant call of a hawk soaring high above. He closed his eyes, letting the sounds envelop him, his mind drifting into a state of contentment. The weight of his pack was a distant memory, the aches in his muscles dulled by the beauty of his surroundings, but the tranquility was deceptive. The grizzly bear, still following Andrés' scent, had drawn closer. It had crossed the same ridge he had descended, its powerful limbs propelling it down the slope with ease. The bear's keen sense of smell had led it directly to the stream, where it paused, its eyes locking onto the figure of Andrés. There was no warning, no growl or rustle of leaves. The bear moved with the silence of a predator, its massive paws barely making a sound as it approached. Andres, still lost in his thoughts, had no time to react. The bear lunged at him with astonishing speed, its mighty jaws snapping shut on his shoulder before he could even register what was happening. The force of the attack knocked him to the ground, his body crumpling under the weight of the bear. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, a searing agony that shot through his entire body. He tried to fight back, to push the bear off him, but it was futile. The grizzly was relentless, its powerful claws raking across his torso, tearing through flesh and muscle with ease. The attack was over in moments, but it felt like an eternity. Andres lay motionless, his body broken and bloodied, as the bear retreated into the forest, its curiosity or hunger satisfied. The forest's sounds returned to normal, the birds resuming their songs as if nothing had happened. The stream continued to flow, its waters now tinged with red. Andres's backpack lay discarded on the ground, its contents scattered around the clearing. Days passed, and Andres's absence was noticed when he failed to check in as planned. Friends and family grew worried, knowing his meticulous nature and the fact that he always kept to his schedule. A search was organized, and a team of experienced hikers and rescue personnel was dispatched to the area. They scoured the trail he had planned to take, their eyes scanning the ground for any sign of him. It was a grueling search, with the dense forest and rugged terrain making progress slow and difficult. The weather had turned, with rain and fog rolling in from the mountains, obscuring their vision and making the trail slippery and treacherous. Days turned into weeks, and hope began to fade. But the searchers were determined, knowing that every moment counted in finding Andres, or at least discovering what had happened to him. It was on the 8th day that they found him. The stream where Andres had rested was still, the water running clear once more. His remains were scattered across the clearing, a gruesome testament to the violence of the attack. The searchers stood in silence, the weight of the discovery pressing down on them. They had found Andres, but it was not the outcome anyone had hoped for. The news of Andres's death spread quickly, reaching his loved ones back in Colombia and the broader community of hikers and outdoor enthusiasts. His death was a stark reminder of the dangers that came with solo backpacking in grizzly territory. The wilderness that Andres had loved so deeply had claimed his life, a sobering reality for those who shared his passion for adventure. The incident prompted calls for better awareness and preparation among solo hikers in grizzly territories. Experts and wildlife officials urged hikers to travel in groups, carry bear spray, and be vigilant at all times. Andres's story became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most experienced and skilled outdoor people were not immune to the dangers of the wild. It was June 22, 2024, and Sergei Ivanov, a 60-year-old veteran bear hunter who had spent his life mastering the art of tracking and hunting these majestic beasts, was on a hunting trip in the dense forests of Kamchatka, Russia. Sergei was born in a small village on the outskirts of Kamchatka, so he knew its forests like the back of his hand. He was well aware of the dangers of the wilderness, which was always teeming with life and covered in mist. Sergei knew and loved the volcanic landscapes, lush meadows, and sprawling forests, all, especially since they were home to some of the largest and most formidable brown bears on Earth. Since he was raised in a family of hunters, Sergei learned to respect and understand the forest from a very young age. As soon as he could walk, his father, Nikolai, taught him how to read animal tracks, recognize the signs of approaching weather, and most importantly, the patience required to hunt the great brown bear. Over the decades, Sergei became renowned for his skills. He was somewhat of a legend among the local hunter community. Even more, he was the person you'd call in case of a bear emergency. Even authorities used his skills when they needed to euthanize a dangerous bear. It is no surprise, then, that Sergei trusted his abilities above anything else. He was extremely confident he could take on even the most dangerous beasts. For Sergei, hunting was more than a tradition. It was an affirmation of his strength and courage. Each successful hunt filled him with a sense of power and control, a testament to his mastery over nature. The thrill of the chase, the strategy of the stalk, and the final moment of confrontation gave him a rush unlike any other. The massive bears of Kamchatka were his ultimate adversaries, and he enjoyed every encounter. In truth, Sergei felt a bit like a king, or maybe even a god, every time he succeeded in hunting a bear. That Saturday, on June 22, 2024, Sergei set out for what he believed would be another successful hunt. He had no doubts about it. He was going to win this time, too. It was about 5 a.m. when he left his little cottage. The morning air was crisp, the forest alive with the chirps of birds and the always-present rustling of leaves. As he slung his rifle over his shoulder and began his trek into the heart of the forest, Sergei felt alive, excitement coursing through his veins. He knew what he had to do. He had spent the previous day scouting, finding fresh bear droppings and large paw prints, clear signs of a big grizzly in the area. The man moved through the forest silently, his senses sharp and alert, careful not to alert the animals of his presence. He followed the tracks with ease, noting the broken branches and disturbed foliage that marked the bear's path. Hours passed as he navigated through the dense underbrush, his anticipation growing with each step. Still, he was patient. He knew the reward would be worth it. And then there it was, a huge grizzly foraging for food in a small clearing. The bear was indeed massive, its thick fur rippling with muscle. Sergei smirked, happy with the prospect of facing a remarkable foe. He approached with practiced stealth. His muscles were taut, his heart beating fast. He took a deep breath, steadied his rifle, and prepared for the final shot. But as he aimed, the bear suddenly stopped and sniffed the air, its head turning toward Sergei's. In an instant, the bear's eyes locked onto his and a low growl rumbled from its throat. Before Sergei could react, the bear charged with incredible speed, closing the distance between them in seconds. Sergei's reflexes were quick, honed by decades of practice. He pulled the trigger. But then something happened, something that he couldn't have anticipated. His rifle jammed. Suddenly, Sergei didn't feel like a god anymore. Panic surged through him as he fumbled to clear the weapon. But it was too late. It was then that Sergei realized he was human after all. The bear was upon him, its massive paw swiping with brutal force and knocking him to the ground. Pain exploded in Sergei's chest as the bear's claws raked through his flesh. He screamed, trying to scramble away, but the bear was relentless. It pinned him down, its hot breath washing over his face. Desperation flooded Sergei's mind. He thought of his family, his 2 adult children, and his grandchildren. He couldn't die here, not like this, not when he had so much to live for. With every ounce of strength he had left, Sergei fought back. He punched at the bear's nose, a sensitive spot, and tried to gouge its eyes. But nothing worked. If anything, the bear was even angrier. The animal roared in fury, shaking its head and biting down on Sergei's arm. Agony tore through him, but he didn't stop. He had to survive. For his kids, for his grandkids. But the bear was simply too strong, a creature of ancient power. Its jaws clamped down on Sergei's shoulder, its claws ripping through his abdomen. Blood poured from the man's wounds, staining the forest floor. Sergei's vision blurred, pain and shock overwhelming him. He could feel his strength fading away, his desperate efforts becoming weaker with each passing second. The bear continued its savage attack, mauling Sergei with a primal ferocity. As darkness closed in, Sergei's thoughts drifted to his loved ones, the faces of his children and grandchildren flashing before his eyes. Tears mixed with the blood on his face as he realized he would never see them again. Then, mercifully, he slipped out of consciousness as the bear started eating him alive. Fellow hunters discovered Sergei's remains. The sight was horrible, a stark reminder of the brutal reality of hunting one of nature's most formidable predators. The hunters recognized Sergei and couldn't believe their eyes. How could this happen to the best hunter in Kamchatka? Sergei Ivanov, the legendary bear hunter, had met a tragic and violent end in the very wilderness he called home. The story of Sergei's final hunt spread quickly through the region, a tale of caution and respect for the wild. It was June 2013, and Tom, an adventurer, was exploring the vast Alaskan wilderness. Tom, a 34-year-old from Seattle, had always loved the great outdoors. From a young age, he enjoyed hiking, camping, and exploring new places. His passion for adventure led him to some of the most remote and wild areas of the world. He had a deep respect for nature and the challenges it presented. Tom had planned this trip to Alaska for months. He wanted to experience the raw beauty and untamed wilderness of the state. With its towering mountains, dense forests, and wide rivers, Alaska was the perfect place for an adventure. Tom was well prepared for the trip, carrying all the necessary gear, including a tent, food supplies, and a hunting knife for protection. He also had a satellite phone for emergencies. On the morning of June 14th, Tom set out on his journey. The weather was clear, and the air was crisp. He trekked through the dense forests, crossing streams and climbing rocky trails. The scenery was breathtaking, and Tom felt a deep sense of peace and excitement. He took his time enjoying the solitude and the sounds of nature. After a long day of hiking, Tom stumbled upon an old, abandoned cabin. The cabin was nestled in a clearing surrounded by tall pine trees. It looked weathered and worn, but it still stood strong. Curiosity got the best of Tom, and he decided to spend the night in the cabin. He thought it would be a unique experience, adding to the adventure of his trip. Tom entered the cabin, finding it empty and quiet. Dust covered the floor, and the furniture was old and broken. He set up his sleeping bag in a corner and made a small fire in the fireplace. The warmth and light from the fire made the cabin feel a bit more inviting. Tom cooked a simple meal and then settled in for the night, feeling content and safe inside the sturdy walls of the cabin. As Tom slept, he was unaware of the danger lurking nearby. A grizzly bear had made its den not far from the cabin. The bear, sensing an intruder in its territory, became agitated and curious. The smell of food from Tom's cooking drew the bear closer. The peaceful night was about to turn into a terrifying ordeal. In the middle of the night, the bear broke into the cabin, smashing through the door with its immense strength. Tom was jolted awake by the noise. His heart raced as he realized what was happening. The bear, driven by instinct and anger, saw Tom as a threat. It charged at him, its powerful body filling the small space of the cabin. Tom tried to escape, but there was nowhere to go. He was trapped inside the cabin with the furious bear. Desperate, he grabbed his hunting knife and attempted to defend himself. He swung the knife, trying to keep the bear at bay. However, the bear's strength and ferocity were overwhelming. It knocked the knife from Tom's hand and pinned him to the ground. The cabin, once a place of shelter, had become a death trap. Tom struggled, but he was no match for the bear's power. The grizzly bear's claws and teeth tore into him, and he was unable to fight back. The cabin, now filled with the sounds of the struggle, became Tom's tomb. His adventurous spirit and love for the wild had led him to a tragic end. The grizzly bear's attack was swift and brutal. Tom's attempts to fend off the bear were futile. The bear's immense strength and aggression overpowered him quickly. In the dim light of the cabin, the struggle came to a tragic end. Tom, who had come to explore and enjoy the wilderness, lay lifeless on the cabin floor. The bear, its rage subsiding, eventually left the cabin. The silence that followed was heavy and eerie, broken only by the distant sounds of the forest. The once peaceful cabin was now a scene of devastation and loss. The next morning, the sun rose over the Alaskan wilderness, casting light on the cabin and its tragic contents. Tom's family and friends, who knew about his adventurous spirit, would soon realize that something had gone terribly wrong. When Tom failed to check in as planned, concern grew quickly. His family contacted local authorities, triggering a search for the missing adventurer. Rescue teams, familiar with the dangers of the Alaskan wilderness, set out to find Tom. They followed his planned route, hoping to locate him before it was too late. The search was challenging, with the dense forests and rugged terrain making progress slow. They were determined to find Tom and bring him back to safety. After several days of searching, the rescue team reached the area near the old cabin. They found signs of Tom's presence, such as footprints and some of his gear. The sight of the abandoned cabin raised their hopes. As they approached, they noticed the broken door and feared the worst. Entering the cabin, the rescuers were met with a tragic scene. Tom's body lay still, the aftermath of the bear attack evident. The team worked quickly to recover Tom's remains with respect and care. They also collected his damaged camera and other personal items, knowing these would be important to his family. The rescue team contacted Tom's family to inform them of the discovery. The news was devastating, and the reality of Tom's fate was a heavy burden for them to bear. They had lost a beloved son, brother, and friend, taken by the wild that he loved so much. Tom's story spread quickly, serving as a stark reminder of the dangers that come with exploring remote and wild places. The incident highlighted the unpredictability of nature and the need for caution and preparedness. Experts in wildlife behavior emphasized the importance of understanding animal territories and behaviors, particularly in regions known for grizzly bear activity. In the weeks that followed, a memorial was held for Tom in Seattle. Family and friends gathered to honor his adventurous spirit and to share memories of the man who had always embraced life with passion. His photographs and stories were shared, celebrating his love for the natural world. Tom's legacy lived on through his work and the lessons learned from his tragic end. His story became a somber warning to others about the risks of venturing into the wild. The Alaskan wilderness, with its stunning beauty and inherent dangers, continued to be a place of awe and respect. Tom's life and untimely death underscored the delicate balance between adventure and safety. The cabin in the Alaskan wilderness, once a symbol of shelter, now stood as a silent testament to the fragility of life in the face of nature's power. Tom's journey, filled with curiosity and bravery, ended in a place he had admired and respected. His story served as a powerful reminder that the wild, while beautiful, demands respect and caution from all who venture into its depths. July 15, 2014, the Thompson family decided to enjoy a summer picnic in the scenic Yosemite National Park. The family, consisting of parents John and Mary and their 2 children, Emily and Jake, loved spending time outdoors. John, a 40-year-old engineer from San Francisco, and Mary, a 38-year-old teacher, had always shared a passion for nature. They often took their children on weekend trips to explore the beautiful parks and trails of California. The Thompsons had planned this picnic for weeks. They chose a spot near the Merced River, a picturesque area known for its stunning views and tranquil setting. The kids were excited about the trip, looking forward to playing by the river and enjoying the delicious food their parents had prepared. The family packed all the essentials, including a large picnic blanket, a cooler filled with food, and a camping stove for cooking. The day started beautifully. The sky was clear, and the sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow over the park. The Thompsons arrived early, finding the perfect spot by the river. They spread out their blanket, set up the camping stove, and began to unpack their meal. The children ran to the water's edge, laughing and splashing as they played. John and Mary watched them with smiles, happy to see their kids enjoying the great outdoors. The family spent the morning relaxing and exploring the area. They took a short hike along the river, marveling at the lush greenery and the majestic granite cliffs that Yosemite is famous for. John and Mary took turns taking pictures, capturing the beauty of the park and the joy on their children's faces. It was a perfect day, filled with laughter and the simple pleasures of being together in nature. As noon approached, they returned to their picnic spot to prepare lunch. Mary started cooking on the camping stove, while John helped the kids get ready to eat. The smell of grilled sandwiches and fresh fruit filled the air, making everyone even more eager to dig in. They gathered around the blanket, enjoying their meal and each other's company. Unbeknownst to the Thompsons, a grizzly bear was nearby, drawn by the enticing aroma of their food. The bear had been foraging in the area and was now making its way toward the family. The serene picnic was about to take a terrifying turn. As the family continued their meal, they suddenly noticed the bear approaching. The bear, large and powerful, moved quickly towards the picnic area. John and Mary realized the danger immediately. John, thinking fast, grabbed the camping stove and tried to use it to fend off the bear. Mary, her heart racing, ushered Emily and Jake towards the car, trying to keep them calm and safe. The bear, undeterred by the stove, charged at John. The children screamed as they watched their father struggle. Mary managed to get the kids into the car, locking the doors behind them. She turned back to see John being attacked by the bear, and his efforts to protect his family put him in grave danger. John fought bravely, using the camping stove to fend off the grizzly bear as best he could. The bear, however, was strong and determined. It swiped at John with its powerful claws, causing deep wounds. John yelled in pain, but continued to stand his ground, trying to protect his family. The children watched in terror from the safety of the car, their mother holding them close. The noise and commotion attracted the attention of nearby park rangers. Yosemite National Park, known for its stunning landscapes and diverse wildlife, has experienced bear encounters before. The rangers were well trained and equipped to handle such situations. They quickly made their way to the Thompson family's location, ready to intervene. As the rangers approached, they used loud noises and bear spray to scare the grizzly bear away. The bear, startled by the sudden onslaught, retreated back into the forest. John collapsed to the ground, exhausted and in severe pain. The rangers rushed to his side, providing first aid and assessing his injuries. He had several deep cuts and bruises, but was conscious and alert. Mary, still holding Emily and Jake, ran over to her husband. The Rangers assured her that John would receive the best care possible. An ambulance was called, and John was quickly transported to the nearest hospital in Yosemite Valley. The family was shaken, but they were all together and safe. At the hospital, doctors treated John's injuries. He needed stitches for the deep cuts and pain medication to manage his discomfort. The medical team praised his bravery and quick thinking, which had undoubtedly saved his family from greater harm. John's recovery would take time, but he was expected to heal fully. The incident at Yosemite National Park served as a sobering reminder of the potential dangers of wildlife encounters. The park authorities took the opportunity to educate visitors about the importance of being prepared and cautious in bear country. They reinforced the need to store food properly and always to be aware of one's surroundings. The Thompson family's story spread quickly, highlighting the need for safety measures when enjoying the great outdoors. The park installed additional signs and provided more resources to help visitors understand the risks and how to mitigate them. The Rangers continued their patrols, ensuring that both the wildlife and the visitors remained safe. For the Thompson family, the day had turned from joyous to nightmarish in a matter of moments, yet they remained resilient. John's heroic actions had kept them safe, and they were grateful to the Rangers who had come to their aid. As John recovered, the family drew closer, thankful for each other and for the support they received. In the weeks that followed, John's story became a powerful testament to human courage and the unpredictable nature of the wilderness. He shared his experience with others, hoping to raise awareness about the importance of respecting wildlife and being prepared for emergencies. The family returned to their home in San Francisco, carrying with them the lessons learned from their harrowing encounter. It was December 2014, and a group of friends decided to take a skiing trip to the remote backcountry of British Columbia. The group consisted of Sarah, Mark, Lisa, and David, all experienced skiers who loved exploring new and challenging terrains. They had known each other since college and often planned adventurous trips together. This skiing trip was their way of enjoying the winter season and testing their skills on untouched slopes. Sarah, a 28-year-old outdoor enthusiast from Vancouver, had always been passionate about skiing. She worked as a teacher and looked forward to these trips as a way to unwind and reconnect with nature. Mark, a software developer, was the planner of the group, always ensuring they had the best routes and safety gear. Lisa, a nurse, was the caretaker, making sure everyone stayed healthy and hydrated. David, a professional photographer, loved capturing their adventures and sharing them on social media. The group had chosen a secluded slope in the backcountry of British Columbia, near the Purcell Mountains. This area was known for its beautiful, untouched snow and breathtaking views. They packed all necessary gear, including food, water, first aid kits, and communication devices. They were well prepared for the challenges of skiing in such a remote location. On the morning of December 12th, the weather was perfect for skiing. The sky was clear, and the snow was fresh. The group set out early, eager to make the most of their day. They traversed through dense forests and across open slopes, enjoying the peace and beauty of the wilderness. The thrill of skiing in such a pristine environment filled them with excitement. As they ventured further into the backcountry, they found a perfect slope that seemed untouched. They decided to take a break and enjoy the scenery before tackling the descent. They chatted and laughed, taking in the stunning views around them. Little did they know their presence had disturbed a grizzly bear in a nearby den. Grizzly bears are known to hibernate during the winter, but the noise and movement awakened this bear. Feeling threatened, it emerged from its den, searching for the source of the disturbance. The bear's sudden appearance took the group by surprise. The peaceful slope quickly turned into a scene of chaos as the bear charged towards them. Sarah, who was closest to the bear, was caught off guard. The bear attacked her, dragging her through the snow. Her friends were horrified but quickly sprang into action. They grabbed their ski poles and rushed to help her. Using the poles, they managed to fend off the bear, striking it repeatedly until it finally retreated back into the forest. Sarah lay in the snow, critically injured. Mark, Lisa, and David immediately tended to her, using their first aid skills to stabilize her condition. They called for emergency help using their communication device, knowing they needed to get Sarah to a hospital as quickly as possible. The remote location made the rescue challenging. but they stayed calm and focused on helping their friend. The call for help was answered swiftly. Rescue teams from Golden, British Columbia, prepared for an airlift. The rugged terrain and snowy conditions made the operation challenging, but the team was experienced in handling such emergencies. While waiting for the helicopter, Sarah's friends did their best to keep her warm and calm, covering her with extra layers and constantly checking her vitals. The sound of the approaching helicopter brought a sense of relief to the group. The rescue team landed skillfully on a flat section of the slope, quickly assessing the situation. They stabilized Sarah further, securing her on a stretcher and preparing her for the airlift. The team worked with precision, ensuring that Sarah was safe for the flight to the nearest hospital. The helicopter took off, heading to Kelowna General Hospital, where Sarah would receive the critical care she needed. Her friends followed the flight path on their devices, hoping for the best. The journey was tense, but the team managed to keep Sarah stable during the flight. Upon arrival, she was rushed into emergency surgery. Sarah's friends reached the hospital shortly after, anxious and exhausted. They were informed that Sarah's injuries were severe but treatable. The medical team worked tirelessly, and after several hours, they were able to provide some hopeful news. Sarah was in critical but stable condition, and the next 24 hours would be crucial. The incident served as a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of wildlife and the importance of understanding and respecting animal habitats. The skiing trip that was meant to be an adventure turned into a life-threatening situation. The group realized how close they had come to a far worse outcome and felt immense gratitude for the quick response of the rescue team. As Sarah began her recovery, her friends reflected on the events. They understood the importance of taking extra precautions when venturing into the wilderness. They also became advocates for wildlife safety, sharing their stories to raise awareness about the risks of winter sports in remote areas. Their experience highlighted the need for better education on how to coexist with wildlife and avoid such dangerous encounters. The bond between the friends grew stronger through this ordeal. They supported Sarah throughout her recovery, visiting her regularly and helping with anything she needed. Their friendship, tested by the harsh realities of nature, emerged more resilient and profound. Sarah's story spread quickly, capturing the attention of the public and media. It underscored the necessity of preparedness and respect for nature's boundaries. Sarah's bravery and her friends' quick actions were praised, and the incident became a teaching moment for many outdoor enthusiasts. The slopes of British Columbia remained beautiful and inviting, but Sarah and her friends knew they would never look at them the same way again. Their experience served as a powerful reminder of the delicate balance between adventure and safety, and the vital need to be vigilant and informed when exploring the wild. It was August 2018, and Emma, an avid kayaker, set out to explore the remote rivers of Alaska. Emma, a 28-year-old outdoor enthusiast from Anchorage, had been kayaking since she was a teenager. She loved the thrill of navigating through serene waterways, surrounded by nature's beauty. Over the years, she developed a deep passion for kayaking and explored many of Alaska's rivers. Emma had planned this trip for months. She chose a remote area in the Kenai Peninsula, known for its breathtaking landscapes and diverse wildlife. She packed all her gear, including her kayak, paddle, safety equipment, and enough supplies for a week-long adventure. Emma was excited about the journey, looking forward to the solitude and the challenge of paddling through untouched nature. On the morning of August 12th, the weather was perfect. The sky was clear, and the air was crisp. Emma set off early, eager to start her adventure. She paddled through the calm waters, enjoying the peaceful surroundings. The narrow channels of the Kenai Peninsula offered stunning views of lush forests and towering mountains. Emma felt a deep sense of freedom and connection to the wilderness. As she paddled deeper into the remote area, Emma admired the wildlife around her. She saw eagles soaring overhead and salmon swimming beneath her kayak. The tranquility of the river was soothing, and Emma relished every moment. She was well prepared and confident in her skills, having tackled many challenging waterways in the past. After several hours of paddling, Emma entered a particularly narrow and serene channel. The water was clear, and the gentle flow carried her smoothly along. She felt at peace, absorbed in the beauty of her surroundings. However, as she rounded a bend in the channel, she suddenly spotted a grizzly bear on the riverbank. The bear was fishing, unaware of Emma's approach. Startled by the sudden appearance of the kayak, the bear looked up and locked eyes with Emma. A moment of tension filled the air. The bear, feeling threatened, charged into the water towards Emma. Panic surged through her as she tried to paddle away quickly. The bear's powerful strides brought it closer with alarming speed. Emma's heart raced as she struggled to escape. The bear reached her kayak and with a mighty swipe, capsized it. Emma was thrown into the cold water, disoriented and terrified. She surfaced, gasping for air, and saw the bear approaching. In a desperate attempt to defend herself, Emma grabbed her paddle and used it to fend off the bear. The bear's aggression was overwhelming. Emma swung her paddle, trying to keep the bear at bay, but the powerful animal was relentless. She screamed for help, hoping that someone nearby might hear her. The water was icy, and her strength was fading quickly. Emma's love for kayaking had led her into a life-threatening encounter, and she fought with every ounce of strength she had to survive. Emma continued to struggle in the icy water, using her paddle to keep the grizzly bear at bay. The bear, determined and aggressive, swiped at her with its powerful claws. Emma's heart pounded as she fought to stay afloat and defend herself. Her screams echoed through the narrow channel, carrying through the quiet wilderness. Nearby, a group of campers at a site along the Kenai River heard the desperate cries for help. They quickly realized that someone was in serious trouble and rushed to the riverbank to investigate. As they peered through the trees, they saw the terrifying scene unfold. Emma, in the water, trying to fend off the attacking bear. The campers sprang into action. They grabbed whatever they could find, pots, pans, and sticks, and made loud noises, hoping to scare the bear away. The bear, distracted by the commotion, turned its attention toward the noise, giving Emma a brief respite. Taking advantage of the distraction, Emma paddled towards the shore as fast as she could. The campers continued to make noise, banging on pots and shouting. The bear, now confused and agitated, slowly retreated to the riverbank. Emma, exhausted and shivering, reached the shore and collapsed into the arms of one of the campers. They quickly wrapped her in a warm blanket and assessed her injuries. Emma had several deep cuts and bruises from the bear's attack. The campers administered first aid, cleaning her wounds and doing their best to stop the bleeding. They knew she needed professional medical help as soon as possible. One of the campers had a satellite phone and used it to call for emergency assistance. They gave their exact location and described Emma's condition, urging the authorities to send help quickly. While waiting for the rescue team, the campers kept Emma warm and comfortable. They gave her water and spoke soothingly to her, trying to keep her calm. Emma's body ached, and the adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her in immense pain. She was grateful for the campers' quick response and their efforts to save her. After what felt like an eternity, the sound of a helicopter approached. The rescue team landed near the campsite and quickly assessed the situation. They carefully lifted Emma onto a stretcher and carried her to the helicopter. The campers watched with relief as Emma was flown to the nearest hospital in Soldotna, Alaska. At the hospital, doctors treated Emma's injuries. She underwent surgery to repair the damage caused by the bear's claws. The medical team was amazed by her strength and will to survive. Emma's recovery was slow, but she was determined to regain her strength and return to the activities she loved. The incident on the Kenai River served as a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of wildlife encounters. Emma's story was shared widely, highlighting the importance of being prepared and staying vigilant in the wilderness. Despite the trauma, Emma remained passionate about kayaking and the natural world. She used her experience to educate others about safety and respect for wildlife. In the months that followed, Emma returned to the water, this time with a greater awareness of the risks. She equipped herself with better safety gear and took extra precautions during her trips. Her love for kayaking and nature remained undiminished, and she continued to explore the remote rivers of Alaska, driven by the same sense of adventure that had led her there in the first place. It was July 2011, and James, a seasoned forest ranger, was conducting a routine patrol in Yellowstone National Park. James, 42 years old, had been a ranger for nearly 2 decades. He was known for his deep knowledge of the park and its wildlife. Growing up near the park, he had developed a passion for nature and a strong sense of duty to protect it. James began his career as a ranger right after college, where he studied environmental science. Over the years, he had faced many challenges, from harsh weather conditions to encounters with wild animals. He had been trained extensively in dealing with dangerous wildlife, including grizzly bears. His experience and skills made him confident in his ability to handle any situation. On this particular day, James was patrolling a section of the park known for its bear activity. The area was beautiful, with dense forests and clear streams, but it was also home to many grizzly bears. James was equipped with bear spray, a radio, and other essential gear. He knew the importance of staying alert and prepared. As he walked along a narrow trail, James enjoyed the peace and beauty of the park. The sounds of birds and the rustling of leaves created a serene atmosphere. He carefully checked the area, looking for signs of bear activity. It was part of his job to ensure the safety of both visitors and wildlife. Suddenly, James noticed fresh bear tracks on the ground. He followed the tracks cautiously, knowing that a bear could be nearby. The tracks led him to a small clearing, where he saw a mother grizzly bear and her 2 cubs. The sight of the bears filled him with awe, but he knew he had to be very careful. A mother bear with cubs could be extremely protective and dangerous. The mother bear spotted James and immediately perceived him as a threat. She began to charge, her powerful body moving swiftly towards him. James's heart raced as he quickly grabbed his bear spray. He aimed and sprayed it towards the charging bear. The spray created a cloud that temporarily deterred the bear, making her back off for a moment. James knew that the bear could become aggressive again at any second. He looked around for a safe place and saw a rocky outcrop nearby. He climbed up the rocks as quickly as he could, putting some distance between himself and the bear. From his elevated position, he used his radio to call for backup. He described his location and the situation to his colleagues, hoping they could arrive in time. The mother bear remained below, still agitated and watching James closely. She paced around, her cubs staying close to her. James kept his eyes on the bear, ready to use the spray again if necessary. He knew he had to stay calm and wait for help. The minutes felt like hours as he watched the bear, hoping his colleagues would arrive soon. James remained on the rocky outcrop, keeping a close eye on the agitated bear below. His heart pounded as he waited for help to arrive. The bear continued to pace around, growling and keeping her cubs close. James knew that the situation was still very dangerous. The mother bear could decide to charge again at any moment. The minutes dragged on, each one feeling like an hour. James could hear the distant sounds of the forest, but his focus was entirely on the bear. He had used his bear spray effectively, but he knew it was a temporary solution. The bear's protective instincts were strong, and she was not going to leave easily. Finally, James heard the faint sound of engines approaching. His colleagues were on their way. Relief washed over him, but he remained vigilant. He saw the rescue team arriving. They parked a safe distance away and quickly assessed the situation. The team was experienced in handling wildlife encounters, and they came prepared. The rescuers used loud noises and other deterrents to try to scare the bear away. They banged metal objects and used air horns, creating a cacophony that startled the bear. The mother bear, confused and overwhelmed by the noise, began to retreat. She moved back towards the forest, her cubs following closely behind. James watched as the bear finally disappeared into the trees. He carefully climbed down from the rocky outcrop, still wary of any sudden movements. His colleagues approached him, making sure he was unharmed. They praised his quick thinking and calm response to the dangerous situation. James felt a wave of gratitude for their timely arrival. The team quickly checked the area to ensure the bear was not returning. Satisfied that the immediate danger was over, they escorted James back to the park vehicle. They drove to the ranger station, where James was able to relax and recount the encounter. The experience had been harrowing, but James was thankful to be safe. News of the incident spread quickly through Yellowstone National Park. It served as a stark reminder of the unpredictability of wildlife and the importance of being prepared. The park officials emphasized the need for rangers and visitors to stay vigilant and respect the habitats of wild animals. James's encounter with the mother grizzly became a topic of discussion among his colleagues and the park's visitors. It highlighted the bravery and dedication of the park rangers who work to protect both the people and the wildlife in Yellowstone. James's actions and the swift response of his team underscored the importance of proper training and equipment. In the days following the incident, James reflected on the close call. He knew that his experience and training had played a crucial role in his survival. The encounter reinforced his respect for the powerful animals that inhabit Yellowstone. He continued his duties with renewed caution and awareness, committed to ensuring the safety of the park's visitors and wildlife. Yellowstone National Park, with its stunning landscapes and diverse wildlife, remained a place of awe and wonder. The incident with the grizzly bear served as a powerful reminder of the delicate balance between humans and nature. James and his colleagues continued their work, ever mindful of the wild and unpredictable world they were entrusted to protect.